Hello, everybody. Bethany Dotson, relationship coach and trauma sensitive yoga therapist for high achieving single or divorced career women who have ultimately a lifelong pattern of choosing and staying too long with emotionally unavailable men or narcissistic partners. And today I'm going live actually ahead of schedule to talk to you about how to overcome your lifelong pattern of staying too long and how to overcome this pervasive cycle, this pattern, you think you're getting better. You've done a lot of therapy. You're reading all the books. You're doing all the research. You're really taking a lot of time off dating to work on yourself. And yet you're still struggling with attracting the wrong people again. And it might even be getting worse. So in fact, most of the people that I speak to on the phone, they've done this for 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years of their life. And usually the last partner that they had was the worst in terms of emotional unavailability. The level of intensity of that relationship was worse than the previous relationship she's had. That person was even more narcissistic than previous relationships that she's had. So I find after years of doing this work that it often gets worse and worse and worse as the years go by. So I want to talk to you today about 5 things that you need to consider and shift within yourself if you want to overcome a lifelong pattern that's typically rooted in trauma, that's caused you to get into the wrong relationships, that's probably causing you right now to doubt your ability to trust yourself as you sit here watching this, that's caused you to question whether or not you're capable of having a healthy relationship, or what does that even look like? So the first and foremost thing that I'm going to tell you, the number one thing that you need to master is the ability to be selfish. The ability to be selfish. So most people, when they hear the word selfish, they immediately contract and they think that's a bad word. And your ex may have been selfish. You may have thought that your parents were selfish. You may have a selfish boss. You know that you don't want to be selfish, and you know internally that that is not your moral compass. But the problem that you have been exuding in your relationships, not just your romantic relationships, if you get really honest, is that you are being selfless, meaning you are giving away more of yourself, more of yourself, more of yourself. You're trespassing your own limitations and your own boundaries in the setting of a relationship, and you are draining your energy and you are abandoning yourself in order to be liked by someone, or in order to not feel rejected, or in order to feel like you belong, or in order to keep the relationship going. You self-abandon and you become selfless. You lose yourself. Everybody that I've talked to and worked with over the years comes in the beginning and they've lost themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. They talk about, the years that they were alive before they met their ex, and they talk about how confident they were and how optimistic they were about life and how they were going after their dreams and their goals. And then they get into this relationship, and slowly and subtly and insidiously they overlook red flags. They stay way past the expiration date, and they lose themselves in that process. And then often they wind up losing themselves in draining careers where they stay too long. They lose themselves day to day and day-to-day life by saying yes when they really mean no to people, friends, family, bosses. So there's this pervasive pattern of being selfless. So the number one thing that you need to shift in your psychology and your belief systems is the ability to be selfish. And selfish doesn't mean that you're conceited. It doesn't mean that you boast about yourself. It doesn't mean that you hoard conversations and you only talk about yourself and you never ask anybody how they're doing. That's narcissistic behavior typically. Being selfish means that you are remaining committed to yourself in a relationship dynamic. And relationship dynamics and relationships, period, are going to be the place that trigger you and pull out your shit the most. And so most people, when they have trauma or when they have prior conditioning, or when they have limiting, unhealthy, negative, subconscious belief systems about themselves, they are going to bring all of that baggage and that wounding with them into a relationship. And I always say you attract what you are, not what you want. So you have to be selfish in terms of learning to remain in your center and learning to tune in to what your body is telling you in the moments that, it's telling, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not sure that this person's right for you. I think you need to speak up. So many people get 30, 40, 50, 60 years into their life listening. They hear that call of their heart and then they shut it down because their trauma programming gets in the way, and they want to be liked. They want to people please. They don't want to make somebody else feel bad. They want to caretake because that's the conditioning that they've been brought up with. So the number one thing that you have to master, one of the number one things that you have to master, is your ability to be selfish, remaining completely in your center, remaining in your, what I call your superhero identity. We have two identities, sometimes more than that, probably more than that. But in my work, we look at two. The first one is your small self, which is, or your supervillain identity. That's the part of you that self-sabotages. That's your wounded inner child. That's your ego that likes to be right and make your ex wrong all the time, or make your parents wrong, or make your boss wrong, or make your friends wrong. So you need to know that you are probably living in your small self, and then you need to look at embodying your superhero. So being selfish is really about embodying your bigger self, yourself with a capital S, and not allowing relationship dynamics or people to pull you off of your center and to lose yourself. So that's being selfish. The number two thing that you need to master is learning to take ownership and accept responsibility. One of the biggest blocks that I see in women who are wanting to recover their lives after a divorce or narcissistic relationship, and ultimately attract an amazing partner when they've been out of that relationship for many months or years, is that they're still talking about what their ex did to them, or they're still talking about what their parents did to them, or they're still talking about what the last guy that they dated online did to them. So they have a disempowered mindset, and they have a victim identity, your supervillain identity, your small self identity. They feel like life is unfair, that another indicator that somebody is not taking responsibility for their scenario and their circumstances and the outcomes that they want, which are to feel better every day and to have a healthy relationship, is that they're often comparing themselves to other people, friends, family members, co-workers who are in great relationships and who seem to be getting it all right, and they're not. So when you are in comparison mode, or when you still feel victimized by what your ex did to you, or you're still waking up every day ruminating about how quickly your ex moved on, you are not, number one, in your big self. And number two, you're not accepting responsibility for the desired outcome you want in your life. You're still holding yourself hostage by being trapped in the past. And your thinking and your belief systems and your feeling states that you feel every day are going to keep you stuck in the past if you still believe that your ex ruined you, or your ex, I did all of these things. I was talking to someone recently on the phone, and she kept wanting to tell me, but my ex did this. No, but I got to tell you, my ex did this. I'm like this because my ex did this. And that can feel really true for some people in the moment, but my ex, all this is the reason you're still stuck. It's the reason you're not getting what you want. So you have to accept responsibility for your role in your relationship dynamics, for the way that you overlook red flags, for the way that you minimize bad behavior, for the way that you continue to go back because you believe nobody else is out there, or it's too hard to start over, or you're going to be alone forever. All of the BS stories that you're telling yourself, you have to take responsibility for that. And this was a hard wake-up call for me years ago when I was in a similar place. And I had a therapist, a trauma therapist, who was very brave and courageous and would not let me get away with my victim story. And she wasn't victim blaming me. And this is not to victim blame you. It's simply to call out that is not going to get you the result that you want. Being a victim, feeling victimized is very normal when you are in the beginning. When you're first Googling, is my ex a narcissist? Am I with a narcissist? What's going on here? Why are we breaking up and getting back together 1,400 times? That's very normal to feel victimized in that early stages, like something's happening to you. You're not really sure what's going on. Where it becomes problematic and really anchors you in quicksand is when it's been many months or many years and you're still thinking about how badly that relationship messed you up and what an asshole he was for moving on so fast and leaving you and your kids in the lurch. That is where you are basically pouring in cement in a container and you're sticking yourself in there and you're staying stuck. That mindset is going to get you nowhere. And it's not only going to get you nowhere, if you decide to date from that place, it's probably going to get you in another toxic relationship. So you have to accept responsibility, which is not comfortable. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, of the ways that you are bringing your own toxic behavior and your own toxic patterns into relationships, because it's always a two-way street. Toxic people do not attract or are attracted at least very long to people who are healthy and in their higher identity and in their superhero identity and in their big self and they're remaining centered in their self. It's not going to work. So if you're codependent, if you hope that your partner would change for years and you stayed and you tried to help him get better, that's a toxic trait that you need to take responsibility for and take ownership and heal that, because that's not going to get you into the type of relationship that you ultimately want. Which brings me to trait number 3, or big shift number 3 that you need to master, and that is overcoming your trauma. Everybody that I've worked with over the years has had some form of trauma. 86% of adults, according to statistics and research walking around on this planet, have had some kind of relational or emotional trauma in their lifetime. It's pretty hard not to have that. And so when you have childhood trauma, when you have had past or prior emotional trauma in the setting of a relationship, that is going to cause you to behave a certain way, and often in maladapted ways. So the common ways that people take on maladaptive traits in relationships due to trauma is that they people please. People pleasing is actually a trauma response. We have fight, flight, or freeze. And then the fourth one is fawning. Fawning is meaning you're wanting people to like you. And so instead of setting a boundary or advocating for yourself when something doesn't feel right, or speaking up during conflict when something doesn't feel right for you, you choose to feel liked in the moment, and you're going to ignore red flags. You're going to ignore your intuition. You're not going to speak up at that moment because you want people to like you. And that's a trauma response. Other trauma responses, codependency, caretaking, and fixing. Unfortunately, I talk to a lot of women who they have children still at home with them, and their children are worried about them. They've got, children under the age of 15 at home, and their kids are caretaking mom because she has just broken up with yet another narcissist, and her kids are actually coaching her and telling her, we're worried about you. We don't trust how you're making decisions in relationships. We're worried that you're not going to pick the right guy. And that's when children undergo that type of behavior in adult life, when they're kind of caretaking a parent, that's a setup for kids to become codependent, because that's not their job, right? And we often, the women that I work with get into relationships where they're trying to caretake an underachieving partner because that feels normal for her on an unconscious level. It just feels right to help their partner be a better person or help their partner overcome their struggles and internal issues. But that is often due to unhealed trauma and not getting your needs met. And it also, for a lot of women, feels more secure to help someone fix their problems rather than actually developing true emotional intimacy. Because true emotional intimacy often feels very scary for most people, especially who have lifelong patterns of getting with people who don't allow emotional intimacy. So you need to use a trauma-informed method to overcome your trauma. And what we know in research, I just did a post about this, is that just traditional straight talk therapy is not effective. In fact, there's a study that says it's ineffective up to 73% of the time when people have emotional trauma. And this is because when you talk about the past, you are just firing and wiring the same circuitry in your brain as you fired and wired it when you were living the experience. So you're not creating new pathways in your brain when you talk about the past. Also, when you talk about the past, it feels good in the moment to get that off of your chest, and you get a hit of dopamine in your system, and dopamine is highly addictive. Think about how many times you check your phone every day. Think about how many times maybe when you were with your ex, you checked to see if your ex texted you and or had called you. And that rush, that little high that you got is dopamine. So when you talk about your past and your toxic ex, you were, number one, not changing anything in your brain. And then number two, you are really kind of getting an addictive chemical being fed into your body. So you're not really changing any kind of your thinking processes. And the other thing that research shows is that trauma is not just stored logically in your brain. It's not up here in your prefrontal cortex, which is what talk therapy normally addresses. It's normally stored in your body as a set of memorized emotional responses, as repressed memories that you've shoved out of sight, out of mind, you've tried to distract yourself from, and as a set of repressed emotions that you've tried to shove down. I don't want to think about that. I'm going to go work 90 hours this week instead and take my mind off of it. I'm going to go shop and take my mind off of it. So you have to use a mind, what I call a mind-body method, or something that is bringing your body into the picture to help regulate your nervous system out of your patterns of people pleasing and caretaking and into remaining in what I call your big self and making decisions and choices from your big self and feeling calm and relaxed during conflict and feeling in your center during conflict, not worrying about, are you going to be alone forever, or not worrying or overanalyzing, is this person on the third date a narcissist or is he not, or am I freaking out, what's going on? So the other thing that using a trauma-informed method, like a somatic method, which is what we use here, is that it helps you to feel safe. It helps you to feel safe with receiving and allowing in relationship scenarios. One of the reasons that people unconsciously get into relationships where it doesn't feel safe is because their nervous system and their brain from past trauma is programmed in such a way that chaos feels normal. Working really hard to get your needs met feels normal. Feeling uncertain all the time, walking on eggshells all the time feels more normal subconsciously to your brain and your nervous system, because that's what you know. And so when you use a trauma-informed method, it retrains your brain and your body a different way, so that the old way doesn't feel normal anymore. It actually feels toxic. It feels really unhealthy. And the relaxed way, which will be uncomfortable at first, feels better. It feels safe to receive. Your body feels safe to receive. You trust yourself more. You've always had the ability to trust, but it's that your trauma programming and your choices have kind of interrupted that pattern. So when you use somatic work, a trauma-informed method, it retrains your brain and your body to behave, make choices from a different mindset and a different emotional home. And you become somebody different when you retrain your brain and your nervous system. And in order to have and attract and keep a better relationship and have healthy relationships, period, you have to become someone different. It's not a matter of you need to do 5 years of therapy, or you need to do more research, or you need to do another retreat, or you need to do 6 months of working really hard on yourself. You don't need to do any more. It's more about who you are being and living and emotionally vibrating at. So that's shift number 3, is using a trauma-informed method to heal your complex trauma, which is the root reason why you keep doing this, and to abandon the pattern of talking about your past and trying to analyze your past in the rearview mirror. Because what research shows in trauma research recovery is that analyzing the past in the rearview mirror does not change your brain and your belief systems. And in some cases, it can actually make it worse. So using a trauma-informed method, a somatic method, a mind-body method that's going to retrain your brain and your nervous system, how to recognize relationships in a healthy way, how to be in relationships in a healthy way, and get you out of that trauma patterning. Which leads me to the fourth big shift. The fourth big thing that you need to master is your ability to be uncomfortable. Your ability to be uncomfortable. One of the number one reasons why people stay too long in wrong relationships, number one, is that chaos and that level of volatility and that level of uncertainty, and that, I heard somebody say recently, it's the cocaine phase of a relationship, feels normal for them. Whereas feeling relaxed, feeling at ease, that predictability, that consistency feels abnormal. It feels uncomfortable because it's not a match for their brain programming and their nervous system. It feels weird. And so unfortunately, I talked to a lot of women where they've had that experience before. They actually met somebody who was healthy, and they was like, ew, and they found a way to sabotage it because they were still in trauma programming, and they hadn't trained themselves yet. They hadn't done the inner work yet to be a match for someone who is healthy and to be able to feel safe receiving that. And, I know a lot of people, you might be thinking, oh, I really want a healthy relationship. You can say that with your words, but your subconscious belief systems and your nervous system probably don't feel safe or comfortable with that yet. And even if that were to show up in your life, you might find a way to sabotage that. And by the way, this sabotage does not just happen in your romantic relationships. I work with women who have sabotaged their finances because of this very same pattern. They've sabotaged their careers because of this very same pattern. They've sabotaged their livelihood and the amount of fun that they have in their life because of this very same pattern. So you have to be willing to get uncomfortable for a little while you change. Just like you go to the gym and you start lifting weights to transform your body, it's not comfortable. You're going to get sore. There will be many days and many mornings where you do not want to go to the gym. The same principle applies here when we're changing and expanding your psychology and the way that you show up in relationships. You are going to feel uncomfortable. And the best clients who see the best results embrace that discomfort. They know it's going to happen. They signed up for that challenge. They're ready to embrace it. And the faster that you can embrace discomfort and befriend it and realize that it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, the faster you will change. And then finally, the last and final thing that you need to master, and a shift that you need, a belief system and a shift that you need to take on, is that you need to invest in help. You need to invest in an expert. You need to invest in a mentor. You need to invest in a coach. You need to invest in a therapist. If that person is trauma informed, you need to invest in outside support to get you past your stuckness, to get you along on your journey. One of the downsides of complex trauma is that it often makes people hyper independent. They don't trust people very much. And a lot of times when people are in therapy or people are in coaching, they will get to a certain point where, oh, it just, it feels too uncomfortable, and they start to back away. And that's actually a good sign, because it means that we are starting to shift their programming. But because people with trauma have had that programming for so long, sometimes procrastination and resistance and self-sabotage are really strong at first, because it's a safety issue. You have self-sabotage in so many ways because in some way it's a safety mechanism for you to keep yourself safe. But that patterning won't work, obviously, long-term if you want to have a healthy relationship. So you need to invest in help, invest in outside help. I talk to a lot of people who, comments on posts or things like that, who say, I can't afford it. I've got to go with my insurance. I can't afford it. But they've been using insurance therapy for years, and they're still stuck. They still wake up anxious, and there's a false belief out there that you've got to do that for like 5 or 10 years in order to feel better. And it's, pardon my French, it's bullshit. It's not true. And when you have the right support, when you have the right strategy, when you have the right trauma-informed strategy, when you have the right support in your corner, when you have accountability, just like, people can make a big body transformation in a matter of months, you can make some big transformations in the matter of months. You don't have to take 5 or 10 years. A lot of times people believe that it takes 5 or 10 years to make any big changes, or it's going to take 5 or 10 years for them to get better. Is because they're actually subconsciously afraid of what life will look like when they're successful or when they have an amazing relationship. It's actually more comfortable to struggle and to feel alone, or to feel like something's wrong with them, because that feeling at least is the known. And if you want to step into feeling empowered every day, feeling confident every day, not relying on anti-anxiety meds, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to learn how to regulate your brain and your body and your nervous system naturally, and you want to overcome the codependency and the ways that you're holding yourself back, having an expert that can see the forest for the trees for you and see your gaps clearly and help guide you forward, not talk about the past, which is what therapy typically does. Therapy often lacks accountability. It's typically more focused on the past and how your past relates to your future. Whereas coaching is about seeing you as a whole, complete individual where you are right now. And the coach or the practitioner recognizing the gaps more clearly than you can, because they have a more objective outside view, and helping you overcome those gaps and helping you move forward step by step by step into that lasting transformation. And a lot of people on their own don't do that because they've had 30, 40, 50, or 60 years of conditioning, and our brains are wired to seek the comfort zone. And if toxic people are not getting your needs met, or working really hard has been your comfort zone, it's pretty likely you're going to want to slide back into that, because that's what you know how to do and what you've become a master at. But if you want to become a master at feeling healthy, emotionally healthy, confident, emotionally free, having inner peace every single day, having a positive mindset about your life and about yourself, feeling confident in your ability to trust yourself and choose correctly and choose right and attract the right kinds of relationships, then you need an expert to see, to give you that path and to help you step into that path. And that happens a lot faster when you have expert help guiding you on that journey. People do not climb Mount Everest by themselves. And if you've had a lifelong pattern of attracting unhealthy relationships, it's not going to be easy to attract somebody healthy when you every single day feel like something's wrong with you, or you're overworking to distract yourself from feeling lonely, or you're avoiding people because you don't want to tell them about the last breakup you just had, or you feel insignificant, or you don't have confidence in yourself. It's going to be a long, hard road overcoming that by yourself. So having a coach, having an expert, having someone who is trauma trained and trauma informed and uses a proven method is hugely beneficial, right? It's imperative. So just to quickly recap, the 5 things you must master if you want to overcome a lifelong pattern of emotionally unavailable men, narcissistic partners, probably in this moment not trusting yourself, feeling like something's wrong with you, feeling like an outsider, feeling insignificant, feeling inferior. If that's your kind of your template that you're living in, you need to, number 1, learn how to be selfish and not selfless, not giving, right? Learn how to embody and master the art of being in your center and remaining in your big self, not your small self, which is what's led you into toxic relationships to begin with. Number 2, accept responsibility. It is nobody else's fault where you are in life. I know that might be hard to hear for some people. It's not your ex's fault that you're where you are right now. It's not your parents' fault where you are right now. The moment you accept responsibility, you step up into your power. And a lot of people confuse that with like, oh, well, then that makes my ex right for what he did, or that makes my parents right. No, it just means that you are no longer using that as an excuse to stay stuck and to stay small and to settle and to play small in your life. So you have to accept responsibility for your own toxic traits, your own dysfunction. We all have them. I have them. Okay. Like the faster that you can accept responsibility for that, the faster you can start healing. It's like an alcoholic admitting, okay, I've got a problem. That's basically what that is. So the third thing that you need to master is your trauma, and using a trauma-informed method, working with someone who is trauma trained to overcome that conditioning that's in your subconscious mind and that programming that's in your body that causes you to unconsciously seek out people that, it feels a little chaotic, it feels a little volatile, it feels like I'm not really sure if I'm going to get my needs met, and to work too hard and stay too long and experience more of that contraction and more of that nervousness and that anxiety and all that fear. That's normal, right? And that's not going to get you where you want to go. These patterns are held subconsciously in your subconscious mind and deep in your brainstem and in your body. And those are 2 places that talk therapy generally doesn't focus on. Talk therapy focuses on, let's talk about, okay, well, what happened this week with your ex, or what happened last week, or what happened when you were 10? Okay, well, that means because that happened when you were 10, this is why you're attracting this now. Great logical information to have, right? It definitely gets people breakthroughs. But what I have found in many, many years of doing this work is that it doesn't lead them to healthy relationships. And it did not lead to healthy relationships for me. I was still very logically aware that I had some dysfunction in my childhood. And I did 12 years of therapy, and I still went out and fell for the most abusive person I'd ever met in my life. So there's a gap there, okay? So use a mind-body method, use a trauma-informed method for healing your trauma. The 4th thing that you need to master is your ability to be uncomfortable, your ability to embrace discomfort. You ignored thousands of red flags because you did not want to feel uncomfortable. You did not want to face what life could look like starting over, what that means about you, loneliness, whatever the things that you were telling yourself. You trespassed your own intuition countless times, and that bought you some temporary comfort in the moment. You stayed in the relationship longer, but long term, when you zoom out over the great picture of your life, it created more discomfort and massive emotional and psychological damage. So the faster that you can embrace discomfort and own that, the faster you change. That's number 4. And then the last and final thing is that you need to invest. It is highly, highly advisable to invest in outside help. People with trauma tend to be hyper independent. They think that they can do it themselves. They think that they can, I can fix it. I just need to watch 40 more YouTube videos and I think I'm going to be okay to start dating again. I haven't seen that work, not one time. And I've been doing this for years. So you need to invest in somebody who is an expert at what they do, who is trauma trained, trauma informed. They use an evidence-based method They're not talking about it. Journaling is not a trauma-informed method, right? They're not talking about what happened when you were 10. These things can give you new awarenesses and insights, but they don't reprogram your brain and your nervous system. So those are the 5 key things that you must master in order to end a lifelong pattern of emotional unavailability in your relationships or narcissistic tendencies in your relationships. You could take the path of, I'm just never going to date again. Love is not for me. Men are not for me. But if you know in your heart that that would be a sad existence and that would be kind of selling out or selling yourself short in this lifetime, then we can help you if you're committed and decisive and you're ready to make some deep, deep, deep changes within your psychology and within yourself to see lasting transformation in your life and in your relationships. So if you're single or divorced, you're 100% done with an ex. If you're established in your career, you're successful in other life areas like your career or your business, but your love life tends to be the one place that you keep failing at, and you've already done a lot of talk therapy, you've already invested a lot of healing time in yourself, you've done a lot of research, but you are still ruminating, or you're still in daily anxiety, or you're still wondering every single day, will I ever meet anybody? Or you still feel like an outsider, even though you put on a smile and go to work or face your coworkers or your friends or your family, but you still feel inside like something is missing and like you feel like a loner and out, you just can't connect. And you want to have that level of fulfillment in your relationships and you want to have an amazing relationship in the future, then we can help you overcome your fears, your trauma, and your blocks. Go to BethanyDotson.com/talk and book a free breakthrough call, a free consultation call, and we'll talk to you for about an hour and get very clear on where your roadblocks are, get very clear on what you want, because most people do not focus on what they want. They focus on what they don't want, and that does not lead you to greatness. And then we'll talk about what the steps are for you to get you there. It might be working with us. It might be working with someone else for a little while. So again, BethanyDotson.com/talk. If you are ready and committed and you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and you're sick and tired of holding yourself back and you recognize, yep, there's something within me. It's not quite fixed yet. I got to fix this. I got to overcome this. And we'll see if we can help you end your lifelong pattern and step forward into the greatest transformation, the greatest emotional health, and ultimately one of the best relationships that you could ever have. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you all very soon. Take care.